Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about this Canon R5, and I'm just going to give you guys my opinion on this camera after using it for just over a year now. I use it almost every single day. This is the way that I roll with it right here. And just keep in mind, this is just my opinion on this camera. I'm not paid by Canon or YouTube or anybody to talk about this camera. I'm just making this video to kind of give back to the filmmaking / photography community, because whenever I buy cameras, I read reviews and I watch reviews on YouTube about them. So this is just my thoughts on this camera, my opinion. So this is how I roll with this camera most of the time. The other ways that I use this camera, I use it for behind the scenes videography when I'm doing a big shoot, like a short film or music video. And when I do that, currently I use the RF to EF adapter and the 16 to 35 Mark II L-series lens. And the other way that I would use it is also with that adapter with an 85 1.2 for portraits or fashion photography. But this is the way that I roll with it most of the time. This is the 100 to 500 RF lens. I have a little Video Mic Go 2 on here with a Movo dead cat, which I strongly recommend. This thing's amazing. And my tripod base plate right here, so that I walk around, I have a tripod right here, set it down, spin this around, throw it on there, and I shoot a lot of video with this. Before I bought this camera, I was using the Canon 5DSR, and I was doing almost only photography. I bought this camera because of its video capabilities, not knowing that I would fall in love with the video quality of this camera so much that it has inspired me to just shoot a lot more when I'm out in the field. A lot more video. Okay, so the things that I love about this camera. The autofocus is phenomenal, especially for photography. The eye detection for humans and animals is nearly flawless. It's incredible. For video mode, with this lens, the 100 to 500, it's not quite as good. It can fall off, but it's good most of the time. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 for photos, 9 out of 10 for videography. It's really good. This camera has in-body stabilization. The sensor is stabilized. That is phenomenal for photos and video. The low light performance in this camera is amazing. Again, comparing it to the camera that I used last, which was the 5DSR, this is much better in low light and has much better dynamic range. So that's another thing that I love about this camera. The flip out screen. I love this screen. Not only can you turn it into selfie mode, but it's nice when you are down low to be able to see what you're doing, when you're up high, and also to protect the back screen in transport. You can flip it around this way. I love the fact that it has a flip out screen. Another thing I love about this camera is the Q button on the back. You can hit this button right here and immediately have access to most of what you're going to want to change on this camera. Your white balance is right here, real easy to see. Your volume controls, if you're in video mode, are here. The frame rate that you want to shoot, the picture profile, it's just incredible. It's all right here. And that leads into the next thing that I love about this camera, which is the customization. This camera has a multitude of customizable buttons. And between those buttons and the Q mode and the My Menu, where you can put your own menu items in your menu, between those three things, I don't ever have to get into the main menu on this camera. I can get everything I need from those three places, and most of them can be done with just the touch of a button. It's phenomenal. Let me know if you guys want me to make a video on how I set this camera up, because I'll do that if you want me to. And another thing that I love about this camera is the quick record button right here. So I'm in photo mode, I'm out taking photos, and I see something that I want to take, where I want to capture video. I just simply hit this button and I'm recording video. That's phenomenal. And it's whatever video you decide you want to put there. You decide the frame rate and the quality, and you're shooting photos, you hit that button and you're immediately recording video. That's incredible. Not to mention that you can switch back and forth between photo and video mode with this little button right here. You can assign this to just switch right back and forth between photo and video mode and it's instantaneous, and I love it. All right, let's talk about some of the things that I don't like about this camera. And there are not very many of them, but battery life is not great. It's not too bad compared to what I hear about the R5C. When I go out, I'm usually out for about 2 to 2.5 hours, and I can usually get through that with one battery. So that's not too bad. I do carry an extra one with me, and I occasionally do have to switch out, but 90% of the time, I can make it through a shoot with one battery. Once I get to where I'm going to hike, I turn the camera on, and I leave it on the entire time. It never shuts off. Of course, I'm not recording that whole time or taking pictures that whole time, but the camera is on and it's ready to go. So to have one battery last for 2 hours under those conditions is not too bad, given that I'm also recording quite a bit during that time and taking a lot of photos. Another thing that I'm not crazy about with this camera is the codec that it records in. I shoot in 4K or 4K fine most of the time, and I have a Mac Studio with an M1 Max chip. So it does really good at editing, but it's still, there are times where if you want to go backwards, for example, you want to scrub backwards, it jumps. Moving forward, playing forward, cutting, editing, all that stuff, it's fine. So it's not too bad, but it is something that, that I have to mention that I'm not too crazy about. That pretty much sums up what I don't like about this camera. There's not much. It's pretty flawless. And let's get the elephant out of the room, the overheating. The overheating thing to me is a non-thing. Like literally, the camera never overheats. That's because I shoot in 4K or 4K fine. The normal 4K would never overheat. The 4K fine supposedly overheats if you're shooting for like a half hour or 45 minutes or something. I have no need to film that long with this camera. I'm shooting nature clips. If I want to shoot an interview, for example, that's 45 minutes long or an hour and a half, I'm going to use my cinema camera, my C300 Mark II, because it's a much better video camera. Even though the specs on this camera on paper are better, it's not as good of a video camera as the C300 Mark II, for example. That's a proper cinema camera that has a much better, usability, built-in ND filters, better audio, all that stuff. So I think the overheating issue to me comes down to a marketing mistake by Canon, who kind of pushed this as an 8K camera when it's really not. It is a incredible photography camera that also shoots amazing 4K video and can do spurts of 8K or even 4K 60 and 4K 120 with the possibility of overheating. But the fact that it can do 8K at all is incredible. I personally have no need for 8K. I don't ever deliver in 8K. Maybe someday I will. And when that happens, I'll revisit the 8K conversation. For now, the camera does not overheat. I never have that issue. I can take countless photos with this thing, as many as I want, as fast as I want. I can shoot 4K video all day long, no overheating. That pretty much sums up my thoughts on this camera. I think if you are trying to decide whether you should buy this camera or not, you should just do it. If you're a photographer or a hybrid shooter, it's phenomenal. I think you should do it. If you were trying to decide between this camera and the R5C, I'll just give you my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion. If you do more video than photography, just get a cinema camera. This C300 Mark II, I'm using it. I bought this thing years ago, and I'm still using it because it's still amazing. I love the image quality. I still shoot short films on it. I shoot music videos on it. It has wonderful 4K. I don't need 8K. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, it's your decision. If you're going to buy a video camera, and that's the main reason you're doing it, get a real video camera. If you're a hybrid shooter and you do video and photos, maybe the R5C is a good choice for you. But for me, doing mostly wildlife, videography, and photography, and some behind-the-scenes type shooting, this thing is phenomenal, and I absolutely love it. And that's my thoughts on this camera. I hope I helped you guys out. Feel free to subscribe and like this video, or not. Whatever floats your boat. All right, talk to you later.